All right. Wow. I'm so excited to see 233 people are on the lesson, y'all. That's a lot of folks from all over this world. So it's lovely, lovely, lovely to have you all here. Okay. So I'm going to move forward. Thank y'all for joining. This session is entitled 5 Tips for Getting Started with Nearpod's Formative Assessments. And just a few helpful tips before we jump in. If you want to try out some of the things that we're going to be doing today, you want to open up another window or tab or even another device, join, your Nearpod account, go to nearpod.com. And of course, I already see a lot of you are on the lesson itself. So that's fine. And I love that you're on because you'll get to experience it fully. But if you want to try some of the things out that I'm going to be sharing with you today, you can open up another tab and get into your Nearpod account. Okay. Don't forget to use the notes feature in Nearpod so that you can get a copy of these slides and any notes that you're taking for today. So look for that little icon toward the right-hand side, the top right, click that icon and then select where you want the notes to go. And then you will be able to get those notes for today's session. As a reminder, I know I've said this before, any questions about the topic, any comments you have, go ahead and put those in the chat. Anything about the presentation itself, put those in the chat. If you have any kind of tech issues or questions, put those in the Q&A, okay? And we have our wonderful moderators here. We have Andrea and we have Holly and we have Pam, who is moderating both the Q&A and the chat today. Okay, now I get to introduce who I am. Hi, everybody. I am Michelle Singh. I'm in Miami, Florida, originally from Jamaica, and been living in Miami, Florida, though pretty much most of my life. I am an educator. I'm also a professor, and I'm a Nearpod certified trainer and a pioneer. So I have lots of experience with Nearpod, and I'm just, happy to be here again for Camp Engage, to be presenting to you and sharing 5 activities that you should be using, formative assessment activities that you should be using when you're creating your wonderful Nearpod lessons. All right. So if you'd love to connect with me, you can scan the QR code that you see on the screen or connect at LCTE Learning on social media, and you can see my information is there as well. So today, our agenda looks like what you see on the screen. We're going to talk about 5 formative assessment activities that are wonderful to incorporate in your lesson. So open-ended questions, draw it activities, collaborate, Flipgrid, and time to climb. Okay, I think we're good with. And for the moderators, Andrea, Holly, or Pam, if there's anything that comes up in the chat that you'd like you'd like to bring up, feel free to, interrupt. Okay, I don't mind that if there's something that's in the chat that needs to be brought to the whole group, just in case. Okay. All right, okay, the first thing that I want to talk about before we get into the actual activities, I want to talk about 5 considerations for formative assessments, right? 5 things that you should ask yourself as you are creating your lesson and when you're adding these formative assessments in your lesson. So question number 1 is, what is the purpose of the activity that you're adding? Is it something that you want for students you want to activate students' prior knowledge? So it's something that you want, to put in the beginning. Is it something that you want to check their learning and like an exit ticket? And so you put it at the end. So what's the purpose? The second question is, what questions will the activity include? So what I mean by that is, if it's a question where you want them to connect, for example, then you're going to ask them reflection questions, right? If it's a question that where you want them to activate their prior knowledge, then you're going to structure the question for them to connect in that way. So think about the kinds of questions that you want for the activity to include. Brainstorming questions that you may ask in the beginning of a lesson, questions that foster collaboration that you may want to ask in the middle of the lesson, or questions at the end to just check that they are clear about the concepts you've taught, and you ask them at the end of the lesson, or questions that you want them to reflect on. So kinds of questions: beginning, middle, and end. And then you also want to ask yourself, what kind of data will you get from the activity? So depending on the activity that you are including in your lesson, the data will be different. For example, if you're going to put a quiz or time to climb, you're going to get the multiple choice data responses. But if you put an open-ended question, you're going to get the written responses that's more elaborate, right? If you put a draw it activity, you may get written because they can use a text feature, and you may have them, complete a PDF where they're filling in information or completing a graphic organizer. So think about the kind of data that you want to get, and that's how you will determine which activity you want to use. And question number 4 is, what is the primary function of the activity? Primary function as in, is this activity going to be good for visual learners, right? Is it, time to climb is great for visuals because you have the avatars and because you can add images, whereas maybe your open-ended question doesn't have as much visual support, but it does have audio support. So what's the primary function of the activity? To give your students the visual support, or maybe the audio to give them the verbal support, right? So think of the primary function of the activity. And then finally, piggybacking off of that one, will it support your students' learning needs? So you really have to know your students here. Do your students, maybe you have students who are better at responding in audio versus typing their text. And so the open-ended question would be great for them because you have that audio. And so would Flipgrid, because Flipgrid allows them to record as well. So what I would suggest, before 5 considerations before adding these assessments to your lesson is to really think about these 5 questions, and that will help you determine which activities to add and where to add it, and what you're going to get from it as far as the data that you can use to adjust your teaching and to drive your instruction. All right. Okay. So 2 things I want to call out as it relates to these activities or certain activities and the support that they give your students. So you have the immersive reader, and the immersive reader is an integration with Nearpod and Microsoft. It is a support and accessibility tool. And so the immersive reader has lots of different functions, right? With the immersive reader, students can use the read aloud feature. And I can go in and show this to you as well. They can use a read aloud feature. They can use language, translation features, picture dictionary, lots of stuff. But the immersive reader is part of the open-ended questions. It's part of draw it. It's part of multiple choice questions. And so if it's even part of text that's typed, and if you use Google Slides, text that's typed on the Google Slides. So whenever the students see the immersive reader icon, they use that as support to get the accessibility support as part of the immersive reader. So I'm calling that out because that's a level of support that the students have in addition to whatever else you add. So always, look at whether or not the formative assessment that you are assigning students has the immersive reader as an option. And on the screen here, the ones that are listed are where the immersive reader will show up. The next thing that I want to call out for support for students when you're looking at these assessments is the reference media option. Certain questions allow you to add what's called reference media. And I look at reference media as another layer of scaffolding or support for students. I can use reference media to add content that students need to support them in answering the question, or I can add content that students need to expand upon the question, right? To see the next step of the question so they can answer it. And so for reference media, you can have it's part of open-ended questions, draw-it activities, polls, quizzes, drag and drop, collaborate, time to climb. So let's say I have an open-ended question and I want for my students to look at a PDF, an excerpt on a PDF to answer that open-ended question. I can add it in as a reference media. Let's say I have my quiz, right? And I want for my students who need that extra layer of scaffolding or support, I want for them to have this video as part of the question. So if they need to watch the video, this really quick video, they can watch it and that's going to help them answer the question. So I just want you to always think in the back of your mind as you are preparing your lessons with these formative assessments. Will students have access to immersive reader? And how can I use the reference media option as a support structure for my students? Okay. All right, so I see some questions. So what I'm gonna do, let's see, let me go here really quick. Okay, so what I wanna do here is I'm gonna this is a question that I do want you to answer, but what I wanna show you on my end, on my screen, I'm gonna show you how the immersive reader works. This is an open-ended question. And for this open-ended question, I'm gonna click on this icon in the far right-hand side, the one that is the book with the speaker. So this tells me that this open-ended question, I can use the immersive reader. And the immersive reader is going to activate for the text that's part of this question, the text that I typed in. So I'm going to press it. So watch carefully what's going to happen to my screen when I press it. Okay, so everything that I typed as the teacher creating this open-ended question is now on the screen. I'm in the immersive reader view. So the immersive reader view allows me as a student, and this is something you can do on your end too. You're in the lesson, you should see that immersive reader icon. You click it, it takes you exactly to where I am. And so when I'm in the immersive reader view, I'm gonna just briefly show you what the students can do. They can activate the read aloud feature.
Let's set our session intention. Complete the following sentence frame. At the end of our session, I hope to feel underscore.
That's a bunch of underscores to mean blank. Okay, so you get that they have that read aloud option. And then for the read aloud, they can adjust the speed, they can slow it down, speed it up, and they can even change the voice style, okay? And so that's one support system you have, the students have with the immersive reader. So the read aloud, then up here in the top right, they have text preferences. And so they can adjust the way that the text looks for them, from the size to the spacing, to even the font style, to even the contrast colors in the background, right? And so they can make all of those adjustments, and that suits their visual needs, okay? So in addition to the way that the text looks, the text preferences, there's some grammar options. So students can turn off and on syllables, they can identify different parts of speech, and you see that it is color coded. So there are those grammar options there. In addition to that, they have what's called the reading preferences, which allow, if they want to use what's called line focus, so they can read the text in 1 line, 3 lines, or 5 lines, and they will be able to use the reader to do that, or they will be able to use the to read it themselves by navigating it themselves. Last thing I want to point out for the immersive reader, so let me turn off line focus. Oh, second to last thing, picture dictionary. So they may be able to click on a particular word, and that word may have a picture associated with it. Not every word has pictures, but they may be able to find a picture associated with the word, right? So they can use the picture dictionary. Okay. Language. This is like one of my favorite parts of the immersive reader because there's over 60 something languages that are part of the immersive reader, and students can translate the text if they need to, right? So they can choose their language. I'm just choosing Dutch, and they can translate. So they can translate by word. So here I see the English word and I see the Dutch word there. Not only can they translate by word, they can translate the entire thing into that language. And so you now see how it's been translated, and it gets better. Most of these languages have a read aloud.
Laten we onze sessie-intentie instellen.
And it reads pretty good in the language. It actually, it sounds like that person it speaks the language, right? So that's the immersive reader. So that's a support option that I wanted to point out. And remember where it shows up in your different types of questions that you're adding. And you want to just let your students know that is something that they have accessible to them when they are, when they're taking part in your Nearpod lesson. Now, this is something that you have to turn on in your settings in your Nearpod account. So you want to make sure that is turned on in your Nearpod account settings. So I just showed you the immersive reader. We just talked about 5 questions or considerations that you should have, you should think about when you're going through your formative assessment planning. I would like for you to now come to our Nearpod lesson and tell me, let's set some intention for our session today, because believe it or not, we haven't even gotten into the 5 points yet, but we've covered so much already, right? So tell me, what is your intention? And I like to do this because I want us to think about what value we want to get from the sessions, the learning that we're taking part in. So complete the following sentence frame. At the end of our session, I hope to feel blank so that I can blank. So the example is, at the end of our session, I hope to feel confident so I can better engage my students with formative assessments. So I would love to hear from you. I'm going to switch my view now, so that I'm going to start it. There's a 2-minute timer on this activity. And now if you go to your student lesson, you'll be able to respond to that question. So I'm going to pause for 2 minutes and give you time to respond. And then I'll give a chance to our moderators to see if there's anything that came up in the chat that we need to address out loud.
We do have one question. Do you know if in vocabulary, if immersive reader is available for some of the linked text they post?
I know that immersive reader is part of vocabulary. When they are asking some of the linked text that they post, that kind of confuses me. I'm not really sure what that's asking, but yeah, immersive reader is part of vocabulary. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. Yep. And what I can do is, while you guys are having your 2 minutes to work on those questions, I could go to the Nearpod resources page and pull from our knowledge base here. There's some immersive reader articles, and I can just drop that in the chat there. Okay. Oh, look at all this wonderful comments. Prepared, comfortable, empowered. That's like one of my favorite words. Confident, ready and sure. Yes. Confident, prepared. I know the basics. So I love it, you all. Thank you all for participating and filling this out. And I see that some of you even utilized the audio feature where you recorded the audio. Now, this question, so the way that this was strategically placed was twofold. One, yes, to get your input and for you to really set some intention, but 2, for you to actually see the open-ended question at work with the different features. So this open-ended question has a timer. All right, I set a 2-minute timer on there. This open-ended question also has a reference media, which is an image. Begin with the end in mind, because it relates to what I talked about setting the intention. This open-ended question also has the immersive reader, okay? And not only that, look at the way that the question looks in the immersive reader. I have the title, and it's in a different color, and it's big and bold. And then I have the sentence frame in a different color as well. And then I have the example smaller. So all of the things that was done for this open-ended question are different ways that you can set up your open-ended question using the tools that's part of the open-ended question. So thank y'all for participating in this. Okay. All right, jumping in. All right, so let's jump into the open-ended question, which is our first formative assessment activity. So this allows you to provide think time and longer responses to your students. And of course, it gives you great insight into their learning. And it also gives you different kinds of data outside of like a multiple choice that you can really use to see students, thought process and understanding. So the immersive reader has the audio feature, which you guys just experienced. The immersive reader has a timer, which you saw. The immersive reader has the rich text editor, which is the way that I was able to structure the question. And it has that share feature. So that share feature, I'm going to show that to you real quick. That share feature is a great way to allow for students to have conversational interaction. So although the question, their answers are coming to you, the teacher, on your end in the teacher view, if you hit that share button, and I don't mean to call anybody out, I'm just going to pick somebody randomly. If I hit that share button, now everybody in this session, all 468 of you who are signed into this lesson, if you look at your screen right now, you're seeing at the end of our session, I hope to feel confident so I can create wonderful content. That is one of your colleagues' responses. It does not show names, but it gives you the opportunity to use the big red share button, as I like to call it, to allow students to connect with each other, right? They get to see each other's responses, ask questions, make connections with each other's responses when you use that big red share button. So I just wanted to call that out. So the share is part of the open-ended question. So pro tip, provide sentence frames to help students formulate their responses. Sometimes they may need that little extra boost, right, to get their thoughts flowing, and those sentence frames can really, really help them. Okay. All right. So open-ended question. So what I want to do now is for every, yes. So every time I talk about the activity, I want to show you how to put that together in your lesson. So I'm kind of switching screens here from the Nearpod lesson, and I'm going to go into into creating in Nearpod. So I'm going to click add, and I'm under activities. I'm going to go here to activities, and I'm going to find the open-ended question. So when I click on the open-ended question, it's going to open up the view for me. And so I can see here, this is where I would type what I want the students to see. Here's my timer over here on the right-hand side. This is my reference media, where I can add an image, an audio recorder, which is like my own voice. So perhaps I want to read the question out loud to my students, or maybe even give them a hint, right, in my own voice. So I can use the audio recorder for that. I can add a PDF. So let's say I wanted the students to read the text on this PDF, or look at what is on this PDF to answer the question. I can attach PDF. I can attach a video. So maybe I add a video as a support for students to watch the content to help them with answering the question. I can even add audio or web content. Web content would just be a URL to a site or to a website or some resource or support for the students. So I would definitely advise to utilize the reference media, even if it's just to add an image. Like you saw in the question that I added, I just added an image that was tied into what you were doing for that activity, right? So reference media, and then here where it says enable student audio recording, right below the reference media in the top right, that's where you would turn the feature on so that your students can share audio if they have the option to record audio, and if you didn't want them to type. So you're giving them choice. You're giving them the choice to type or the choice to record audio, but you definitely need to turn that audio feature on. Okay. A few things to call out here. So when you type in, your question, you can make adjustments to the size, you can adjust the color scheme, you can adjust the highlights. So you have this rich text editor here that you can play with so that your open-ended question has different features, and you call out certain things that the students need to see, especially if it's a lot of text, right? And so I definitely wanted to show you what that process was of working with the open-ended questions. All right, so let's jump into our second activity, which is our Draw It activity. But before I move to Draw It, I'm going to pause real quick to ask the moderators if there was anything from the chat about open-ended question that I can answer before I switch to the next topic.
Michelle, can you show them the big red button?
The big, okay, yeah, so I'm gonna actually go back to show you the big red share button. So when you are on your activity, when you're on your open-ended activity and you're on the teacher view and the students have answered, that's where you'll see the share button. And then you can just click on the share button and it will share out the response to, to everyone. So here is the big red share button. Okay. All right, fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Draw It. Draw It is another formative assessment, and the Draw It activity gives learners multiple options to show what they know and to show what they know using the tools that they know, because they're going to be using things like digital inking, right? Like the inking option, we get to mark something up. So some of the call outs for the Draw It feature are, there is a timer. You can upload an image, a PNG or JPEG or a PDF file. And you can use, students can use digital inking. And then there's, again, that big red share button. So top tip for the Draw is to use it as a whiteboard for students to work out a math problem or draw or illustrate something. Maybe your Draw It activity is for at the beginning of class for students to tell you how, the younger ones, to tell you how they're feeling, and you have them draw like a face, a happy face, a sad face, or whatever, using the whiteboard option. So what I want to do is I want to go into my Nearpod account, and I want to show you how to add a Draw It activity. So I'm going to go to the very, very beginning of me into my Nearpod account. So here I am, I've signed into my Nearpod account and I want to create a lesson. So I'm going to hit create and I'm going to hit lesson. Okay, and that's what takes me into this view here where I can now add content and activities to the lesson I'm creating. So I'm going to click this button here to add content. And because I'm focused on activities, I'm going to click up here where it says activities, and then I'm looking for Draw It. So when I find the Draw It, I'm going to click on the Draw It. And here I am, Draw It opens up for me, and I can see that I can add a reference media, right? Reference media again, image, audio, recorder, PDF, video, audio, web content. But here I will put my instructions. So maybe for this one, I want students to, illustrate what the, where are we? Can't type today. What the character was thinking, blah, 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 when they da, 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 da. So what I can do now is upload, you see where it says upload background image. What do I want them to illustrate this on? Do I want them to do it on a whiteboard? Or if this particular activity, I'm asking them to illustrate what the character was thinking. So I may have like an open mind diagram, right? That I put as the background for them to put their illustrations on. But I just want you to note that you can upload a JPEG, a PNG, or a PDF. So a lot of you who have content, let's say from your publishers that your school, your district uses, like your textbook, they usually come with like PDF content, worksheets, different types of like graphic organizers and things like that. Those can easily be added into your Droid activity for the students to fill it out. Instead of filling it out as a sheet of paper in front of them, they're completing it as a Droid activity, okay? So you can also even search Google. So I'm gonna put open mind activity and see what shows up here. I spelled activity wrong, but hey, look, this is what I was looking for. I'm gonna hit save. And now here is the activity that the students will see. So they're going to, and maybe here I put an audio of that particular excerpt from the text where the character was, going through what they were going through, or maybe I put the PDF of that particular excerpt from the text so that they have that as support. And so you don't always have to put a timer, it's up to you, but you don't have to use a timer option. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit save because I have my diagram, I have my background, I have my, my directions for the student. So I'm good to go. So now for the draw it, the students will see right? This is what illustrate what the character was thinking, and then they get to use these inking tools, right? So there's digital inking, and they can mark up. There's highlighters, so if they want to highlight. There's even a text box that allows them to type, and they can even add images. So sad emoji, sure, sad emoji. So I'm just going to add that just to illustrate, how they can add different types of things to their Droid activity. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to illustrate that for you so you can see what the Droid activity looks like, how you could go into your account to set it up, and how it's really one of the most versatile activities, I think, in Nearpod, because you have the option to add images, or you can add PDFs, or you could search Google and find something, graphic organizers, worksheets. There's so many things that it can be used for, and really for any grade level, any grade level or any content area, because we all have worksheets and things that our students are using, whether it's a map or the brain or identifying feelings, whatever it is, right? So the Droid is very, 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 very versatile. So with that, you get to complete a Droid activity. And I am going to ask that you go to your lesson that you're logged into. So 479 people are logged into this lesson. You're going to see how this Droid is set up. I added a video there as a reference media. You have your instructions, and then there is a background image for you to use those inking tools to respond to the question. So go ahead and take a moment and go ahead and start responding. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and then I want to show you what it looks like on the teacher's end to see this happen. Okay, while we're waiting for folks to respond, anything, moderators, from the chat that I can address out loud? If you see anything.
think we are good for now, but we'll definitely flag anything if it's specific to your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, folks, I see y'all are at work. All right, all right. Okay, so as you're working, I want to show you from the teacher's end what the draw looks like, right? So I get to see while you're in progress as you're working, and I also get to see once you have submitted. So for example, I think because we have 489 people on the draw, which is definitely not what you will have in your classroom, right? It kind of is slowing down. I may have to refresh my screen here just a little bit. But if from the teacher's end, for the Droid activity from the teacher's end, when you click on a student's response, when you click on the thumbnail for the student, what you're gonna see is their work. And if the work has that green submitted on it, you're gonna see that share button, that big red share button. So the draw option also has the share option where you can share out to the whole class that students, drawing for them to have those conversational interactions. Okay. All right. Going forward. So thank you all for participating in the draw and really engaging in our presentation today. I know there's a lot we're covering, and we have a lot of folks online. So I appreciate y'all. So the next thing that I want to talk about is collaborate, right? Collaborate you did when we started. That was the first activity you did on the very first slide. So collaborate allows you to curate student responses and give everyone a voice during the discussion, right? Because students are seeing each other's thoughts. It's like it is a digital bulletin board. So you have different options in your collaborate. You can do it as a grid, where it's just, everything like what you saw earlier, where everything is just on the screen. And then you have the columns where you can organize by categories. Your students can also comment on each other's posts that they make on the collaborate board, and they get to upload different media types to their comments. So some of you added images and GIFs. There's an option to add video as well. So you have different media types when your students are responding. And then there's the option to moderate, meaning you can moderate, you can review the students' posts before they actually go onto the board so that everybody can see it, right? So pro tip is provide strategies for students to give themselves, to give each other feedback. I used the word provide twice there. So strategies like tag. Tag stands for tell something that they did well, ask a question, and give a suggestion. So if you wanted students to actually, comment on each other's posts, give them strategies to help them versus just telling them to comment, because they're just going to put, I agree, I disagree, I like that, okay. They're not going to provide the constructive feedback, right, that you may want to see. So you have to give them strategies to help. So tag is a way to help the students be able to comment purposefully on their the collaborate board to their peers. So let me jump in here and show you what creating the collaborate board looks like. So remember, I'm already in the lesson that I'm working on. And so all I'm going to do is click on add content and add activities. And then I'm going to go under activities because the collaborate board is an activity. So let me find it. And here it is. Okay. And when I click on the collaborate board, this is what it looks like, right? Oh, tag means tell something that the student did well, ask a question, that's the A, and give a suggestion for improvement. So it's just the strategy I used with my students when I wanted them to provide like writing feedback that actually was solid, right? So tell something they did well, ask a question, give strategies or suggestion for improvement. Okay. All right. So here is my Collaborate board. And so you see up at the top left here, I can choose grid or I can choose column. And then that's where I can organize it by having the students respond in certain columns. Or if it's the grid, they just respond on the board itself. Over here to the far right, okay, this is where I can choose the design. So you have lots of options here where you can choose how it looks on your screen. This was the one that you guys did earlier. So you can see that there are lots of options here, lots and lots of options for your Collaborate board. Okay, so I'm choosing a grid. Over here where it says student options, this is where you can turn off and on certain features. Like if you wanted to approve student comments and student posts before they're actually posted, this is where the moderation comes in. Okay, if you want students to see names, you could turn that off and on. If you want students to edit their responses, you can turn that off and on, and so on. So you could just look at the student options and choose them according to what you think would work best for your students. Okay, so I apologize if it's showing up too small. Let me see if I can, let's see. Okay, make it a little bit bigger for you. Hopefully that works. All right, so grid, column, we talked about those two things. Student options, here are the student options of where you could turn things off and on, and media types. So you can turn these off and on for what you want your students to be able to respond to. So they can do images, videos, record audio, and GIFs. And then here, again, your reference media. Oh, let's do this. So let's say this was a writing activity. You know, I wanted students to provide that constructive feedback. So let me type this in, tag strategy. Let's see what shows up, tag strategy. Tag, no, tag your it. That's not exactly what I was looking for. Instructional maybe strategy, because I know that there's lots of like graphics and stuff out there for the tag learning strategy. Like this might be one. Ah, yes, perfect. So let's say I did want the students to provide the comments. Guess what? I just added the tag to as a reference media. So when I tell them, you know, reply after posting your response, you know, reply to your peers and use the image in the reference media as a guide, they have it right there, right? So you put your topic here, you put your instructions here, okay? And I'm watching the clock. And then if you want, you know, again, you make your adjustments up here to what you need, you add your reference media, and then you hit save. And that's it, right? And so now it's part of your lesson. I'm going to preview it for you real quick. And so here's what the students see. They can add their thoughts down here, and you can see that they have access to the different media types that they can add to their comments. And then when they click here, they see what the tag stands for, right? So here is your example of the Collaborate board. Okay, so moving right along. All right. Any questions that came up in the chat about Collaborate board before we move on to the, I think this is the last, no, this is the fourth one. The fourth one is Flipgrid. All right, let's see. I don't hear anything, so I think we're all good. Moving forward. Okay, now, I love Flipgrid, y'all. Like, Flipgrid is like one of my favorite tools to use just ever, okay? It really does provide so many opportunities for students to share their voice, to share their backgrounds, to share their value. Like, I just love this tool. And I'm so happy that Nearpod and Flipgrid has this integration. So you can actually add a Flipgrid activity right in your Nearpod lesson, because Flipgrid is one of those activities. But let me correct myself because just recently at the ISTE conference in June, at the end of June, Flipgrid announced some changes that they were making, and that was some of those changes were to their name and their brand. So they're actually now called Microsoft Flip. So not Flipgrid, but Microsoft Flip. And they actually changed their logo as well. So their logo is different. So I know we're all used to Flipgrid, so I have to even correct myself a lot. It's now called Microsoft Flip. Okay, so just letting y'all know. Okay, so you can add Microsoft Flip as part of your activities for Nearpod. And again, this is a wonderful platform that allows students to use videos or audio, along with all of the other creative things that are creative features that are part of their video, the flip camera. And so they have the flip camera features, and they have audio or video response options. They can even screen share or upload, let's say like a PowerPoint into a PowerPoint, like a video that they actually recorded. They can upload that, not a PowerPoint. I was thinking something else. They can upload a video, and they can definitely have those conversational interactions because they're commenting on each other's responses to topics that the teacher has created for them. So pro tip is use the Microsoft Flip Discovery Library to find existing topics and experiences. The Microsoft Flip Discovery Library is jam-packed with so much good stuff, like free stuff, things that are already done for you. You don't ever have to reinvent the wheel. I'm logging into my Flip account now just to kind of show you when I'm logged into Microsoft Flip. So if you don't have an account, you have to create one because you need to have one to be able to use this integration in Nearpod. So you have to have a Flip account, a Microsoft Flip account, which is free. You could just easily go to flip.com and sign up for it. So once you're logged into your account, in the far right, I'm just going to click on the Discovery Library. And I'm just going to show you that there are 45,856 topics that have already been created by people in the community, educators and partners that exist where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay, so you can find these topics that are already done for you. You can search by subject area, by grade level, by topic itself, and add them to your Flipgrid class, so that then you can come back to Nearpod and add them into Nearpod, right? So it kind of works like both ways. You have to have a Flip account to be able to use Flipgrid in the Nearpod app. Okay, I don't want to confuse you, but you got to have a Flip account to use the integration with Microsoft Flip and Nearpod. Okay, all right. So really quick, just showing you what that looks like. So I go in to create that activity. No, students don't need to have a Flip account, but when you create your Flip account, you'll add your you'll add your students, or you'll give them a code to view your lessons or whatever. But you actually don't need to give them the code if you're going to add the lesson into the Nearpod, because in the Nearpod, when they get to that activity, they get to the activity. Okay. All right, so let me show you here. So I'm going to go to activities. I'm going to go to Flip Grid, and it says here, insert the topic URL and insert the join link. So that tells you that you're going to need to have those topic URLs and join links for the students, and you have to go into your Flip account to do that. So I'm going to go into one of my classes, and I'm going to go into this one here. So the topic URL is what's up here in this topic, right up here. Like I'm grabbing it from there. And so when I go into my Nearpod account, I enter that topic URL. Here it says the join link. So I am going to grab the join link, which is here, because that's the link that the students use to join the lesson. So when I go to the join link, I enter that there. So it's asking you for two things. You have to be in your Flipgrid account. And so when you're in your Flipgrid account, you go into that topic, whichever topic it is. This particular one is about bombings of Hiroshima. And so I want to grab the admin link, the URL, and then the join link, the student join link. And so when I add those things, that Flip topic is now brought into Nearpod And when students are in my Nearpod lesson, they see that flip topic in Nearpod itself. Okay, and so this is what the students will see when they're in the Nearpod lesson, and they can click add a response. And of course, my camera's not available because I'm using my camera for Zoom, but you get the point. So you have to have the Flip account, your topics come from Flip, you grab the URLs and you put them in Nearpod. Okay, all right, so let's see. Let's jump in to our last topic before, I know we have about 7 minutes left. So I am going to get through 7 minutes. We only have one more topic left. So I'm going to save the flip questions till after I talk about time to climb. All right. Okay. So time to climb is the last formative assessment that I want to talk about. I really like the time to climb because it's basically a quiz and the kids don't know they are taking a quiz, but it's a gamified version of a quiz. And so you're assessing what the students know without them even knowing it's assessment, because they're having fun, because they have avatars, they have music, they have lots of great visuals. And so it's fun. It is fun for them. So the time to climb has a timer. It has multiple choice questions. You can add text or image responses. And of course, there are the gamification elements that I talked about, like with the avatar and with the music and with, you know, the challenge, the competition, right? Because there's like a leaderboard and all of that. So what the top tip is to convert your existing quizzes to time to climb activities so that they are more engaging and exciting and fun for the students. So I'm going to go into my account real quick and I am going to create a time to climb. So I'm going to go there to add content, add activity. And where's my time to climb? There it is, the first one. And I missed it. So here it's simple, right? Like here's your time to climb. You type in your question and you type in your answers and you tell it which one is the correct answer. And you can, you know, have more than what's there. Like if you want 3 responses, 4 responses, if you want, you know, 10 questions, you just keep adding your questions and typing in and identifying the right answers with the little check mark. If you want for your answer choices to be text, it can be text. Your answer choices can also be images, okay? So you can choose for your answer choices to be text or images. I also want to point out that you can add a reference image only to your questions for your time to climb. So there is a reference option, but it's for image only, and there's a timer for each question as well. Okay, so that is the time to climb activity, and you're going to get to test that out right now, right now, while we have 4 minutes left. If you go to the student lesson, you will see that there's going to be a time to climb. I'm going to just turn off the sound and just, it's going to ask you, the teacher, you know, how do you want this game? You know, first of all, what theme do you want? Right. So there are a bunch of themes that you could choose from. And then do you want to randomize answers? Do you want to pause the game in between the questions for discussion based on the feedback that you get? And do you want to play sound on all devices? So I just turned all those options off. So I'm going to hit continue, and it's going to wait for you all to choose your avatars, right? And then you're going to pop in, and I can see y'all popping in. And then when I start the game, that's when you'll see yourselves moving up the, you know, the hill and the leaderboard and the questions and the quiz format, but it doesn't really seem like a quiz and so on. Okay. All right, so I know that not everyone has joined yet, but because of time, I'm going to hit start game so that you can just see, at least on my end, what it looks like. So the game is starting. So you see, first of all, you hear the music, but I'm going to turn the music down. Okay. And you could see that I'm getting immediate data from each question. right? How many got correct, incorrect? I see a leaderboard here. I did not, I chose to block your names out, so that's why you don't see the names there, okay? And so the timer, will go off. You'll see the timing up there, and then it will move to the next question and so on. And then it'll do the countdown, and it'll show you a leaderboard for each question, and you'll see the class performance. So if you turn that option on to have, to have a discussion before each question, you'll be able to have something to talk to the kids about, right? Because you'll see the class performance here. And this is a great way for you to take a pause in between each question if you would like to address any misconceptions at any point. All right. No, you're not limited to 5 questions. I only put 5 questions on this. So you can add, I don't know the exact number, but you can definitely add more than 5. Okay. So digital inking, because I'm kind of seeing some of the questions pop up. Digital inking is like on the Draw It activity where they can use the inking option. And if they have a touch screen and actually have like a pen or their finger, they can actually draw digitally. Okay. All right. So with that, I'm going to move on. I know we're not done with the 5 questions, but you can see that we have lots of benefits for all of these 5 assessments. And you could see 10 of those benefits right here on the screen, right? Voice, choice, participation, classroom community, culture, perspectives, checks learning, adjusts teaching, promotes conversational interactions, engagement. So all of those apply when you use these formative assessment tools in your learning. And yeah, so think about the intention that you set at the beginning of your session and show how that intention was met. Hopefully, I know that, I said this in the beginning, whenever you're learning something new, you are going to feel overwhelmed and you're going to feel, frustrated, and you're going to feel anxious. And that's okay. Those are normal feelings to acknowledge, because that's what happens when we're learning something new. But think about the value. Think about the value for your students. Think about the experience for your students, the excitement and the joy and the fun that your students will get from participating in these activities. And take your time. Give yourself some grace. You're not going to learn all 5 if you're seeing them for the first time, and you're not going to learn how to do this all today in 60 minutes. So, there are lots of resources that are available to help you. There's the YouTube channel for Nearpod, where it really does offer tutorials, like quick videos on how to use each of these tools, right? There's the Nearpod resources site where you can get those knowledge-based articles. So there's stuff there to kind of guide you as you're working through this process. So give yourself time, give yourself grace, be patient with yourself, and thank y'all for coming to this session. And again, I hope you got value from what we did today. And good luck on the upcoming school year. I wish you all the very best. And I wish your students the very best as they get to participate in Nearpod activities and experience that love and joy in learning. All right. Thank y'all.